I don't know how else to start today's video off other than by saying things be expensive in 2025. So many times when I think we talk about the topic of budgeting or cutting back our spending, being minimalist, the conversation is always about what to cut. Admittedly, today's video is going to be focusing on some of these categories that I do want to eliminate / cut in my life in 2025. But for me, this process is less about being negative and saying no to things. It's about being intentional with my spending so that I'm not in this autopilot mode of using or deploying very valuable resources like the money that we all work hard to earn on things that we really wouldn't choose to spend that money on if we took a step back and said, wait, do I feel actual joy when I get to use money in this way? Let's think about that a little bit more deeply. I like watching these types of videos, not because I even necessarily always agree with what's on someone else's list. I'm sure you won't agree with some of the things on mine, but it's more so to just get me curious about my own financial habits. Hopefully that's what we will get from today's video. Subscribe if you haven't already, because I love talking about money on this channel and just like every area of life where we can find little ways to better life in practical, non-intimidating ways. It's a big ethos of what I'm all about. So if that's something of interest, hit subscribe and let's get into it. A lot of the day-to-day spending I do is on the food category, whether it's like groceries or takeout or going out to eat. So this is a category that I'm going to really focus on a lot in the next few points. My first no buy for 2025 is drinks. Now I'm specifically thinking about more alcohol when I'm talking about this point, but I also have a sub point about coffee. So in 2024, I went through a personal journey of deciding to cut out alcohol from my diet. And one of the unexpected things that I learned from that, because I spent about 3/4 of the year sober, is how much money I saved from it. Like, I wasn't doing this for financial reasons, but I was like, whoa, there's so much money that I put into or have put into over the years into alcohol. And that's specifically the case when I'm going out for dinner or for drinks or for a night out. These are things that typically happen here in my home city, Toronto, and drinks are so expensive, specifically the things that I get more interested in, which are cocktails and wine. Like an average cocktail in Toronto is in that $20 range, and typically you're having more than one. Even at dinner, you might grab a cocktail with dinner, you might grab a cocktail afterwards because you're still chatting, maybe you do another round. All of a sudden you've got $60 added to your bill. Now the conversations around alcohol and everyone's relationship with alcohol, their philosophy behind it, has a lot of like depth beyond just the financial part of it. But I am someone who has only ever really drank from a social setting. It's definitely something I just do out of habit when I'm around people. And for the most part, although there are some cocktails that are really delicious, I don't think I've ever like loved my experience with alcohol in terms of like just the taste of it. When I really think about it, I'm like, wait, I can still enjoy that engagement with other people without that element. So to me, I'm like, oh, this is an area where I've just been spending a lot out of habit and not because I actually thought like, oh, this cocktail is worth $20 or oh, this bottle of wine is worth the $40, $50 that I'm contributing to it, because sometimes bottles of wine can get a little crazy. I wanted to bring it up in this video because yes, in 2025, this is a plan. I plan to stick to this no buy alcohol rule, but I wanted to bring it up because even if you don't plan to be no alcohol, and I may decide to have a change in what my relationship with alcohol is in the years to come, it's about, I think, or challenging or posing the question, I guess, more like to you and to a future potential me, of when you are in situations where you're drinking, like, are you making those decisions because you actually find value in making that purchase? Another category I think about when it comes to drinks is coffee, specifically like takeout coffee in the form of lattes, specialty beverages. I don't think this is as applicable to drip coffee because drip coffee is so inexpensive, but I'm talking about the specialty coffees, the $7, $8, $9, $10 lattes that you get. When I find myself regularly buying those things, again, I feel like it just becomes habitual and I'm not really like getting the value of that latte. A few weeks ago, I'd even mentioned to a friend, I bought this iced latte for I think like $7.50. and I drank it in 2 minutes because I was so thirsty and like into it. I was gulping it down. I'm like, where did it go? I'm also just a very fast drinker. It's one of my not so great qualities in myself. I'm trying to become more of those like slow, easy sippers. But after I drank it, I'm like, why did I do that? Why did I spend that much money on a latte that I wasn't even really like savoring and enjoying? Like I should have just went to go buy a cheap cup of coffee if I was gonna do that. So specialty lattes like is something that, yes, I'm not completely cutting out of my spending, which I know is contrary to what the title of this video is, but I'm scaling it right back because I notice a difference that when I wait in between my latte purchases, then when I get one, I actually am like so appreciative of it and I'm savoring it. And then I think it's worth the extra money that I'm spending. But if I'm just doing it and treating it like a drip coffee, oh my goodness, it's not worth it to me. Might be worth it to you, but not worth it to me. I feel like over the years, I've had to become increasingly smarter about how I'm making purchases at the grocery store because so much money can get lost here. Pre-made snacks. A lot of pre-made snacks that you get aren't necessarily the healthiest for you. But if you do even want to have like healthier snack options available, those healthier pre-made snacks tend to come at a premium price tag. So my philosophy is definitely to make the snacks versus to buy the snacks instead. From a financial perspective, you can typically make these things for a lot cheaper than buying them pre-done. This year, I also want to stop buying groceries, asterisks, on the same day every single week. We have to buy groceries, I gotta eat. I'm assuming most of us have a day time of the week where we go grocery shopping because it's a time that's convenient for us. I have a day that I typically go grocery shopping, and over the past little bit, I've kind of like pushed the boundaries of that and said, wait, I'm not gonna go grocery shopping on that day because I still can make a couple meals from this thing in the pantry and this in the freezer. Although there are those basics that I need to kind of make sure I stay on top of regularly, like eggs and milk things. There are times where if I'm just going grocery shopping because it's the day of the week that I'm supposed to do it, then I could find myself buying all this food, specifically fresh produce, because a large ratio of my weekly groceries tends to be fresh produce that I'm not actually gonna be using or have to use for another couple days, and then I'm not using them when they're fresh. It kind of like creates a cycle of food waste for me. And food waste is the one thing that I feel a lot of guilt for. Like if I have to throw out something because I didn't eat it, either because I was lazy or I forgot about it or for whatever reason, it makes me so upset with myself. And I think it should, you know, I should value food and really like make sure that when I buy it, I'm making use of all of it because it's a privilege to have access to this food. It's just when I have to toss out something that was perfectly edible at one point, and also just that I'm also throwing money away. That's not fun either. I am a die-hard reader, so there's never going to be a time in my life where I'm not buying books, but in 2025 I really plan to avoid buying books to end up on my TBR. I will only buy a book that I plan to read right away. Whenever I go to the bookstore these days, I am constantly surprised at how expensive it is to buy a hardcover new release these days. Although I think there are a lot of ways to make reading affordable in your life. Obviously, ebooks are an option that are just going to be cheaper as a whole. But I also love using the Libby app, which I've talked a lot about, which allows me to connect to my local Toronto library and borrow ebooks from the library rather than buying even the ebook version that's already cheaper myself. I'm also a huge romance reader, so I use Kindle Unlimited, and that's a really great value for me managing the cost of that aspect of my reading journey. But when it comes to buying physical books, like I'm really adamant about not buying that physical book until I'm ready to read it, because it's just too expensive now to buy a physical book and to have it just be a paperweight on my shelf. I really love having physical books around me, and I'm not mad about any of that. Like I'm looking at my little bookshelf over here, and it brings me a lot of joy to see these physical books. So I do see a lot of value in spending this money, but I also don't like it if I'm just buying a book to stay on my shelf. I think something happens when you buy a book that you're gonna read right away that feels like an extra special journey. So even if there's a book that I want to read, I'm like, I'll wait to buy it until it's time for me to read it so that I get the full experience of joy throughout it. Because there's something stressful about a book when it sits on your shelf for too long. You just start feeling the judgment from its spine looking at your face every day being like, are you gonna read me yet? Are you gonna read me yet? What about now? And then I'm over here just like, don't look at me, you know, that kind of situation. Maybe that's a single experience. I say this is a rule for physical books, but I also apply this to ebooks as well, even more so because there's no benefit for me to pre-buy a book or an ebook before I want to read it. You can buy an ebook at all times of the day, so I might as well just buy it when I'm ready to read it. And that just, yeah, helps the TBR from getting out of control. And in general, like a TBR to me is representative of money I've spent that I haven't really seen the full value of because I'm not engaging in the product, especially when it comes to an ebook. Like at least a physical book has the beauty of being decor in my home and filling up my space with literature, which is really important to me. But you don't get that same kind of feeling from a digital title or cover page icon on your screen. Whether it's decor that's evergreen, stuff that you always keep in your home, or seasonal decor, like you can kind of feel stores trying to push people decorating for Valentine's Day and decorating for Easter and decorating for like these seasons that aren't Christmas, but like really pushing a Christmas tone to them. And I am going to be resisting any sort of urges that sprout out from that because I don't have the space in this apartment. So even though like I don't live a minimalist life here, I also have to be like very smart about any sort of things I do bring in here because I don't have storage room to put, especially seasonal decor, away for like another season. Even my Christmas decor I end up having to store outside of this apartment. How I think I'm going to really be able to stick to this goal of like avoiding decor purchases too this year and in years to come is to focus on bringing pre-existing decor to other rooms. I really want to play with how do I move without moving in this apartment, and I think moving decor into new spaces helps you see them in new lights. And you know, there's a lot of things in this apartment that I'm like, oh, I do like this individual thing, I'm just kind of bored of it in this same spot, because I tend to be very habitual with my decor too. I keep things pretty same for a long time. Another tactic to helping me avoid seasonal decor is to DIY more things. And I actually just recently did this in a video where I DIY'd some spring garland. I actually saw a felt garland of this at the store. It was like $25 for a felt garland, and it's not like the most expensive thing in the world, but I did think it was overpriced for what it was. It's not something I needed either. I didn't need, you know, flower garland, but I realized, wait, I could make this. And I did make it, albeit it's not as elevated as the one in the store, but I think it kind of gets the same effect. And chances are I don't imagine that garland in the store was one that I would think I'd love for years and years to come. So even so, I feel like this is one of those cases where DIYing it made more sense. Gifts can be one of those things that get out of control when it comes to buying them for friends or family or loved ones, but you know, sometimes we want to treat our people and we accept the fact that we're going to spend a little money on them. What I can't accept is spending tons of money on like the gift wrap for that gift. And I think if you are buying these items like cards and gift bags and tissue paper or gift wrap at places where it's convenient to do so, i.e. like the place where you're buying the gift itself, you're always going to overpay for those supplies to the point where you sometimes might spend, you know, $10, $15 on just like the gift wrapping components of a gift. For what? For something that people are going to recycle or throw out or not spend much time appreciating. Making sure that I take the time to think ahead about what occasions are coming up so that when I'm at the dollar store, I am looking for those cards in advance so I'm not pushed to make a convenient purchase that I'm going to overpay for. I'm a proud serial hobbyist. I like to crochet, I like to experiment with painting, I like to play with clay. I've made a book nook before. I like the DIYs, again, as we know, like I just love getting creative and diving into a hobby. But in 2025, I really want to force myself not to dive into hobbies, but to just gently tiptoe into them. I always want to try new things, but my philosophy this year has to be, how can I try this thing for as little commitment as possible? Financial commitment, supply commitment, like how can I do this with next to nothing? Now, I'm going to use crochet as an example, but I don't think it applies here because crochet is genuinely something that I love doing. I've done multiple projects at this point, and it's a skill that I want to keep refining. So of course it's going to be one that I've invested now a little bit more into with not so much like my crochet hooks and that stuff, but like the actual yarn collection that I have. But that's one example of something that, even though I've like deep dived into this hobby of crochet, I don't want to like keep going where I'm just buying yarn that I'm not using just to have the yarn because it looks cute and there's a rush that I get from buying the yarn in store. If you know, you know. And then it's just like sitting around my apartment again judging me. I do not want to be judged by the stuff in my apartment that I had intended to use that I'm not yet using. I want to make a point, especially with crocheting this year, not to buy new yarn because there's quite a bit of yarn I need to work through. At the beginning of the year, I also made some investments into some new journals, namely the Paper Republic journals and my Filofax planner. I did a whole video on my planning system if you want to check that out. So yes, I'm at a pause for like any more stationery purchases, but I don't feel bad about those purchases because I went for years kind of not really buying in this area. But one thing that I am going to be very mindfully strict about with myself is not to buy more supplies for my journaling or my Filofax planning, to really make use of the things that I have. Like at the beginning of the year, I also bought a couple sticker books and I love using those sticker books, and I'm like kind of like going through like a sticker love again. But I'm like, okay, no more sticker book purchases. Let's use as much of these stickers as possible before we add new ones into the collection, because otherwise then I'm gonna have like this whole collection of stickers, and like these are things that, yeah, one-ofs don't make a big deal, like a little sticker collection, a little pen collection, a little journal collection, a little book collection, a little yarn collection, but then you add them all together and like things are crazy, not just in a physical sense, but you can also drop a lot of money into these things that again, if you're not using it to its full extent, then you're not really getting the full value for your money. And I think it's really important to pay attention to that with purchases that, yeah, they're small, but they do add up. Clothing hauls. I'm not like specifically saying no to clothing at all. I know that's like a common thing, like no buy clothing, but I would say over the past few years, I have been pretty restrained with how often I buy clothing. And admittedly, I do feel like there's certain parts of my wardrobe that I would like to make some purchases in this year, but I think I'm against doing like the big clothing haul. And I think this really stems from just like cutting back the amount of online clothing shopping I'm doing. I just want to really focus on buying individual pieces that I truly just like love. And I don't even mean that has to be super expensive pieces, but pieces that I do feel like are better quality, looking out for stitching, looking out for fabric composition, and also like the tone of a piece is something that I see long-term me enjoying in my wardrobe, because there are a lot of pieces in my wardrobe that I've had long-term. The sweater is one of them. I don't even know how many years I've had it, but I've had it a really long time. So I want that level of love for everything in my wardrobe. And I think sometimes when you're doing like a clothing haul and you're buying all these things at once, it's hard to know, like, are you really loving each individual piece, or are you getting kind of swept away by the promo deal that you get if you spend a certain amount of money? So you try and hit that limit, and that's why you kind of like got some pieces that you may have otherwise not. I think like this comes down to also constantly checking in with your wardrobe and seeing what's working, what's not, and being intentional too about the purchases that you do make. Are they filling a gap that is needed in your wardrobe? Because if you filled the gap, you actually feel the difference of buying new clothing. If you're buying clothing that you don't really need, or you have something that already serves that same purpose, you don't feel like you're getting anywhere with your fashion journey. That's really important to keep in mind. Like at this point, I went through like a phase last year where I bought like a lot of sweatpants. I discovered sweatpants, I bought sweatpants. It has changed my life, but I can honestly say I don't need new sweatpants for a while. And if I were to buy a new pair tomorrow, my life wouldn't be better, because my wardrobe doesn't need that right now. My wardrobe may need like more summer dress options, or it might need more tops, but like it doesn't need that category anymore. So to spend money in it would just be really frivolous. Me and the people need to know, what are you not spending money on in 2025? Let me know in the comment section down below. Hopefully this video gave you some ideas, or just like things to think about, mull over, brainstorm. We all have different ideas of like what we value and what we don't. So just because something's on my list doesn't mean it has to be on yours, and same as vice versa. Something on your list might not be on mine. That's cool. It's just cool to like talk about spending and money, I think, in these ways, and thinking a little bit more deeply about it than just being like spending is bad, spending is good. No, there's probably a little bit of gray in between, so let's be okay with that. I'll see you guys soon with another one. Until then, ciao guys.
I think I found my favorite distraction. At least I'm in line with this attraction. If you don't feel my heart, you've not had enough. This time I really need to calm above, or else I slowly lose myself. tonight.